Hi guys, Alicia Walls here with Walls Customs Creation, and today I'll be showing you how to sublimate and wrap your 20-ounce tumbler the easiest way possible. Okay, so we're using a sheet of 8.5 by 11 sublimation paper. As you can see, the design is already on the sublimation paper. Now we're going to go ahead and start with trimming off the excess white edges of this design. Now some people, they don't like to do it, but once again, like I said, this is the way that I do mine. I try to trim away as much of the edges as possible, and you'll see later on in this video how I adjust and make as many small little minor adjustments as possible. So these two thicker white sides, some people leave one white. I take both of mine away, but you'll see that here in the video. So make sure you guys stay tuned and subscribe if you have not already subscribed to our channel. Okay, now as you can see here, I am just, like I said, just making this, all the white borders, taking them off of this design. And once I did the first one here, I pretty much grab my tumbler and I measure it, make sure that it is meeting the ends where the seam will meet. Now what I'm doing here, and I'm showing you guys how much white is on the top of that tumbler and along the bottom. Now some people like theirs there on the bottom like that, but I don't. I like to leave a little bit of white at the very bottom of the tumbler. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and make a few minor adjustments here to the top and the bottom of this sublimation design here. Okay, so once all of that is done, guys, I pretty much grab my tumbler several times whenever I am trying to measure how I want my design to fit around my tumbler. So now what I'll do here, guys, is just take a little bit more off the bottom. Now if you do notice, I do have a cutting mat, and that cutting mat has a ruler. Okay, it's very important, especially if you're new to this, to have a ruler when you're doing it, because that helps you to line up your design. Now this is the second time that I've put this around here. Now take a look at how much is around the bottom. You may not can see it as well, but I still need to make some adjustments to the bottom. Now I'm not cutting much from the top of this design because I don't want to take away from the effects of the very top. Okay, now with this one, it's just a little bit off the bottom. Now I'll grab my tumbler one more time, put it around there, and make sure everything lines up perfectly. Okay, now also what I normally do is I turn my tumbler upside down and I will press that sublimation design towards the rim of the tumbler. Now take a look at this little white gap here. Okay, now this is what I like to do for mine, because you can't really see the bottom of the sublimation design in the tumbler whenever you sublimate all the way to the bottom. But if you leave a little bit of white, and then right here around the top, it's a little bit that's there, I'll cut that off here in just a second. I pretty much like mine to be perfect. But going back to what I was just saying, a lot of people like to go all the way to the bottom, and a lot of people don't know how to do it that way. So I'm showing you guys, like I said in the beginning, the easiest way possible to do this. Now what I am trimming away here, guys, it was a little bit of an edge and it didn't line up for the seam, so I want to make sure that I have that seam completely even on the top and the bottom. See that little bitty piece? It was just a little bitty piece that I needed to get cut off of there, so that's what I did. So now we're going to go ahead and fit this sublimation transfer around our tumbler, once again turning that tumbler upside down, guys, and now we're going to meet the ends there and on the rim. Everything meets up perfectly, so now I can proceed on to get this this tumbler put all of my heat tape on the tumbler. Now this right here is a technique that I absolutely love. What I did here is I pretty much just put my seam together, I grabbed my hands around the tumbler, and I turned the paper on the tumbler to get it as tight as possible. Now some videos you may see people kind of roll it around on the table or whatever, but this, I have a little bit more control of the paper around my tumbler, and I can feel the tightness. Whenever you're sublimating, you want to make sure that your design is almost like it's married to your tumbler. Okay, and whenever you do that, you pretty much turn out with a fantastic sublimated tumbler when you know your sublimation design is really tight with your tumbler. Okay, now what you guys would have noticed just a second ago, a lot of people put their first piece of heat transfer tape in the middle. I do not do that, because when you put it in the middle, what happens is it will budge on the top and the bottom. So if you do it the way that you saw me do it here, you pretty much have a much better turnout when you do it that way. Okay, and I put my middle piece of tape on last. Okay, so once we do that, and then you notice there, like I rub the tape pretty hard and I pull the tape pretty hard to make sure that it meets with the other end where the tape is, you know, where there is no tape. I'll grab me a long piece of the heat transfer tape. As you can see right at the top, I leave a little bit at the top and the bottom, and either the top or the bottom, it doesn't matter. You can kind of press it down so that it does not move when you pull it, because when you're doing this part here for your seam, you also want to pull that really tight, guys, all the way to the top or the bottom, whichever one that you prefer to do first. But you want to pull it really tight so there's no air that can get in or no air that can escape that transfer that's on your tumbler whenever you're sublimating. Okay, now the next thing that we're going to do here is go ahead and secure your top. Now, as you can see here, I only have just a little bit that's actually on the tumbler, and as I am pulling that around the rim of the tumbler, I am pulling it pretty tight, so that once again no air can escape and no air can get inside of that paper when we place it into our tumbler press in just a moment. Okay, so now what I'm doing, I am rolling it as hard as I can inside of the tumbler, and you want to do that all the way around. I see a lot of people that just put their hand in and just kind of pull it over. That is what gives you those air pockets, and you have the missing ink from your sublimation paper. Now this is the next little trick here. I kind of turn it on the rim and I press it down really hard, kind of twisting it around in a circular motion, and that once again will help to have a little to no air escaping or entering that sublimation paper. I am doing the exact same thing to the bottom, pulling it really tight. You guys may see some little paper gaps down there at the bottom. That's absolutely fine, as long as you're pulling that tape really tight all the way to the next meeting point for your paper. Now you would also notice that I grab my hand and I roll it around that tape and the paper to make sure that it is completely stuck to my sublimation paper. I do the exact same thing to the bottom as I do to the top of my tumbler, and I'm here to tell you guys, whenever you wrap your tumbler this way, you have a fantastic outcome when it comes to any type of tumbler, whatever size, it does not matter. You have an absolutely beautiful tumbler. Now what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you how I sublimate this my tumblers. This is one of the tumbler press that we offer here with 20oz Custom Creation. The link will be in the description of this video if you guys would like to purchase this. I sublimate all of my tumblers, I don't care what size it is, at 356 degrees for 60 seconds. I rotate it and I press it again for another 60 seconds, okay? So as you can see, 356 degrees for 60 seconds, all right? We'll have another detailed video about the tumbler press a little bit later on. Now, when I am doing this on the seam, I want the seam down in my attachment there. Once I put it in and I lower the lever, it will automatically start counting down the timer. Now, if you guys would notice, the time there, it did decrease. That's absolutely fine, because after your first press, it will not lose any of the temperature whatsoever, okay? So what we're going to do, we're just going to put on our heat glove and we're going to rotate it where the seam now is up on the tumbler press. We're going to close that attachment once again, and we're going to let it sublimate for where we're going to press it for another 60 seconds, okay? So after that's done, we're going to go ahead and open it up. Now this is very crucial, the next step that we're going to do when we take this tumbler out of this tumbler press. A lot of people immediately start to take off their sublimation paper that's on it. I don't do that. I let it sit there and I let it cool down for a few minutes. As you can see, that design is coming through the sublimation paper, and that lets you know that it's ready. Now this is not as cool as I would like it, but it's okay, but it's still a little bit warm where I want to be a little more cautious, and I put my glove back on to make sure that I don't drop it or it doesn't get too hot to my hand or anything. So as you guys see here, I am pulling that tape from the inside of the tumbler first. Now normally what I do, guys, I am able to kind of pull that piece of tape there, but this one here was a little bit shorter than what I normally have my piece of heat transfer tape around the rim. So I just grabbed my X-Acto knife and I went ahead and cut a little bit of a cut in the tape, and from there I can just kind of roll it around. You know, I normally like to see how much ink actually sublimated onto the tumbler. On this one, it really didn't do it for me this time, but it's okay. It's not a problem at all. So once again, at the bottom, we're just going to do it the same way we did it from the inside and just roll it around. I never pull my tape off because I have noticed, especially if it's hot, it tends to kind of shift some of the ink on there because it's still really, really hot. But on here, I just kind of slowly pull it up. And of course, as you go on, it will get a little bit faster for you. It's not a big deal, but this is the best way and the easiest way to wrap your tumblers, and the sublimation turns out fantastic. Okay, guys, so once I'm done pulling all of that tape off, I try to, you know, pull the tape off in the middle when I pull off the bottom and the top. It happens sometimes it doesn't. It's not a big deal. So I grab my X-Acto knife and I'm using very, very light pressure to just make a little bitty cut on the tape to try to help it out, to pull it off some. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I don't want to, you know, use a lot of pressure because I don't want to cut my design on my tumbler, okay? So I said, what the heck, forget it. I'm not going to worry about it. And I went ahead and pulled the paper on off. And as you guys would notice, as I'm pulling the paper off of the tumbler, it sublimated fantastic. All of the ink, it sublimated onto that tumbler perfectly, guys. So this is how I do my sublimation tumblers. This is how I wrap them. This is how I sublimate those tumblers. And look at that. That seam, you can't even tell there's a seam right there, guys. The colors is fantastic. I know the video may not do it any justice whatsoever because the ring light was so freaking bright, but this is what the tumbler looked like. Look at the bottom and look at the top. Absolutely phenomenal, guys. So once again, if you guys would like to purchase any of the tumblers, the link is in the bottom of the description. If you guys would like to upgrade to something other than the oven or to something other than the convection oven, make sure you guys click the link in the bottom of the description to purchase our tumbler press. Thank you guys so much for watching.